phonetically is an incredibly phonetic language. It's not like English where OUGH changes depending on the word. Certain sounds and letters will always be those letters. The trouble is, the spelling then changes.
Kieran is informing us about the beauty of the Welsh language, but now we are going to start.
I was going to say, there's things I'd like to say.
You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast, independent podcast, where we sometimes discuss languages that have been killed off by English, but most of the time we talk about topics in film criticism, history, etc. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who does not have a building as tall as the one in the raid on my university campus.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who would have had a baseball bat or a hammer here, but I don't think I can make it look as threatening as the guys in the raid.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one that's actually vaguely met Gareth Evans for about 2 hours when he came in and did a kind of lecture at my university.
Yeah. And Kieran, what are you wearing? Tell the folks at home.
What? I'm wearing a dragon.
Well, what kind of dragon? Tell us about this dragon.
A red one, the one that beat the English. Canonically in the story.
Kieran is wearing a Welsh flag. He is draped in it like the Welsh version of a January 6th.
And somehow we're not talking about Ryan Reynolds.
No. Only two months too late for St. David's Day.
Not yet, because St. David's. Is it the first or the third? Why do I think it's the third?
What is St. David's Day? Enlighten
patron saint of. So St. Patrick's Day?
Yes, the snake guy.
Yeah, that's for the Irish. St. David's Day is for the Welsh.
He drove the snakes out of Wales.
Yeah, which is impressive because there actually were snakes in Wales, unlike Ireland.
That's where they went when St. Patrick was like, bugger off. They went to Wales.
Yeah.
And turned into dragons.
The funny thing is, we think actually that St. Patrick probably wasn't from Ireland and he was from the mainland. There were no snakes in Ireland, or if he was, he kind of came over to the mainland and then went back again, kind of thing.
I think basically all the patron saints of the UK were from the Middle East or something like that.
You're telling me that Catholics lied about their magic that their saints did?
Oh, well, I mean,
say it ain't so.
The Catholic Pope, part of his title, his entire title does not contain the word Pope.
Good point. That's true. Well, what about the anti-Pope?
Apparently there is. I don't know, but apparently there is somebody called Pope, but he's like a leader of part of a church in it's not Rwanda, but it's some African nation somewhere, but it's not a Catholic organization. This was on QI a load of years ago, so the Pope is not called the Pope, and the Pope is not Catholic. Anyway.
Also, the Pope is non-existent presently, so.
Yeah.
Although, do we know, does the dead guy, is he still the Pope until there's a new one, or is there just no Pope?
Well, they've done that bit at the beginning of Conclave, where they smash his ring and like that.
I was going to say the fact that the amount of people watching Conclave has gone up by 400% in the past week is amazing.
Well, mostly because Amazon made it free to mark the occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, really poor timing from old Francis. He should have done them a solid and died closer to the release.
I was going to say, in the nicest way, if he'd have died 2 months ago, Conclave would have won at the Oscars, like it did at the BAFTAs. Anyway.
But he was kind, and he let Mikey Madsen have her moment. So,
yes.
That's excellent. We're not talking about popes. We're not talking about Conclave. We're talking about action movies. Which, guys, do you think the Pope liked Gareth Evans' movie? I doubt it. Probably not.
It's probably not a lot in it for him, really. So.
It probably definitely didn't like Apostle.
What's interesting about Gareth Evans is he's a Welsh filmmaker, but the 3 films we're talking about today, he didn't make them in Wales or the English language or any of that stuff.
No. He ends up in Indonesia, in Jakarta, sent out there to make a documentary on Pencak Silat, which is the native martial arts over there, and through doing so, met Iko Uwais, and they formed a fast friendship, and
his muse.
became a great collaborators for the next few years. And judging by his more recent English language films, I think he should probably stick to the Indonesian stuff.
Yeah.
And perhaps this could also be the Iko Uwais episode too, because he's sorry.
Is it
I
Iko
don't know
or
how to
Iko?
say it.
I don't know.
I'm going to say Rama.
Yeah. No, I think how we, as far as I can remember from what he said, how we got over there was that he was friends with, check the name, Matt Flannery. I think they both went.
Who was his cinematographer?
Yeah. And I think it was Matt Flannery had got the job with some relation of his was making. I think it was Footsteps. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm remembering off a talk that was given coming on 8 years ago. Might have been 8 years ago. So I've got vague ideas, but exact specifics are going to be off in my head. So he goes out, and because he knew Gareth Evans, takes Gareth Evans along with him, which is how they all end up in Indonesia making Footsteps. After the back of that, they go, we want to make a movie. So they managed to get the script together for Meranto. And the way half they could finance Meranto was the fact that it was showing off the martial arts style, which is it Silat? Silat, isn't it?
Silat,
yeah, which is a kind of native Indonesian martial arts style, kind of free-form martial arts in a way. And so essentially they kind of went to kind of, I think, the Indonesian Arts Council, that equivalent of, and went, this is not just a movie, this is a cultural expose of part of your national heritage, which is how they got the funding from.
This is a big tourism boost for us potentially.
So that's kind of how they got up there and were making that. And once you're out there, you've got a little bit of running. You kind of keep going from there. Really.
Well, it's interesting you bring that point up, because something that I was thinking about watching I watched The Raid first. So watching that film, I was thinking about, like, why don't more Anglo directors make non-English films? And, you get into, like, you have to translate the script, but just like you have to do if you're a non-English speaking director like Bong Joon-ho, you have someone kind of translate your work. We've discussed that. English is...
We did, who did Blueberry Nights?
Wong Kar-wai.
That's it, yeah. I was about to say Park Chan-wook, and I was like, no, it's one of the Korean guys that I can't remember. So he did the same thing.
English being the sort of dominant language spoken around the world, like so many filmmakers come to America, start making their movies in English, or maybe even make them, in their home countries. But, it would be interesting to see, like, the Russos make a Dutch language film, because, there's the argument that, like, a bigger Anglo filmmaker might crowd out, a theater or whatever. But at the same time, drawing attention to the national character, to the national cinema, getting more exposure, that's a really important thing, especially for a place like Indonesia, where I don't think of it as a place of particular national cinema. It's not one that is frequently discussed, and it's cool to see, someone go there and be like, hey, let's make movies here in Indonesia. Let's make it in the native language.
I was going to say, I think like a lot of, like, the national kind of cinemas of, like, East Asia, I think they've seen a big resurgence in obviously they've always had their own kind of film industries and everything, and obviously produced homegrown products to be watched by the locals, but they've had a big resurgence in the past 20 years or so, with places like Thailand, particularly like genre cinema, and often it's obviously it's who bring it over to the West, that kind of amplifies that, and kind of provide fuels the fire, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the kind of I'm going to a very blunt term say modern Asian cinema, which is so loose and blunt it should be shot as a phrasing. I think a lot of the stuff that we get exposed to in the West, unless you go looking for it, it's likely to be I'm going to loosely go genre cinema, aka essentially not the comedies or the dramas or whatever, which are probably very much consumed in the locale. The stuff that gets exported quite a lot of the time is the stuff that's going to end up at film festivals. And I think the genre cinema works better than that because a lot of it is so visual, it's not as reliant on language.
Dramas and comedies can rely on like social mores and ideas that you know, Americans at least are ignorant of.
Yeah. I mean, famously, you know, in his Oscars campaign, Bong Joon-ho was talking about, you know, that 2-inch barrier, you know, that kind of getting over, you know, reading subtitles and everything like that. Now, these films, they're not, because they're action vehicles, they're not exactly dialogue heavy. You know, I think even if you were real, so you can kind of get the gist probably without reading the subtitles about what's going on, and you know, it's not essential aspects of it. But I still remember because I saw The Raid in the cinema when I was at uni, and I remember going into it was like the local View or something, and it had a big marketing push, and I think it had really good word of mouth, and a lot of people were turning out, you know, in surprisingly high numbers, you know, to see this new martial arts film. But they had to put notes, or they felt like they had to put notes across all the counter saying, "The Raid is an Indonesian film; it will be subtitled," you know.
Yeah.
But basically say you can't complain that you didn't know about this. You can't be asking for your money back. Which just kind of it's a shame they felt they had to do that. But obviously, some people would use it as an excuse, you know, to complain, wouldn't they?
No, it's all the people going in to see Dread, which is funny because The Raid actually came out earlier than originally slated because they were editing The Raid and getting kind of bits together, and the trailer for Dread dropped. And they were like, oh crap, if we release this where we want to, everyone, regardless of the fact there's no feasible way we can create this within like 3 months and shove it out there, everyone's going to think we nicked the idea off Dread.
It's purely coincidental, isn't it? I mean, that'll be a good episode in the future. It's like movies coming out within a year of each other that coincidentally basically exactly the same. You know,
part of my I will probably address in my paper on modern slash movies that I've got to actually create and then present in sort of, I will have presented it in 4 weeks time, looking at the timing. But the fact that you had Time Cut, totally killer, and It's a Wonderful Knife, 3 time traveling slasher movies coming out literally within 12 months of each other. It's ridiculous, like pretty much exactly the same plot. So these things do happen, but on the fast forwarding date, I get that one directly from Gareth Evans because somebody asked him about the timing with Dread, and he was like, that was a thing. So they were aware of Dread, but they obviously made it and they were putting it together, and somebody went, this is a thing, it looks like it has exactly the same plot as our movie, this is being done by Hollywood, and they went, okay, we're gonna have to do something about this.
On Evans, you know, you discussed him making Footsteps. I read an interview with Toronto International Film Festival Midnight Madness that which The Raid was the first Indonesian film shown there, by the way. He got out of university, worked a 9-to-5 job in Wales, and was like, I want to make a feature, and made Footsteps for $10,000. So, you know.
I don't think it'll be dollars.
Well, the interview has a $sign. I don't know if he wrote it or if they transcribed it or what. I don't know if it's the Welsh equivalent. I don't know if it's in pounds, but yeah, he did that. And then he also said that his wife, who is now his boss, was pushing him and his DVD. Now, this was back then. I don't know if she's still his boss or his wife. But she was pushing Footsteps in order to, you know, help get him more work. So that is how he ended up doing the documentary and going on.
Yeah, I'm just actually trying to work out which campus he was on for University of South Wales, because there are several.
We're doing advanced stalking live on.
Yeah, obviously, kind of. He's from that area. I lived down there for 2 years. I may end up back there in the near future. And University of South Wales is literally it's not Cardiff University, but they have campuses pretty much in the middle of Cardiff as well. So, you know, I very possibly walked past it. And actually where he's from, which is Hunvar or something like that. Where is it?
Is there like a monument in front of his house yet? Has he reached that level in Wales?
No, Hirwan, it literally is a town of about 5,000 people. But whenever I go down to Cardiff, I skirt literally about 5 mile away from it. It's about 5-10 mile west of Merthyr Tydfil, just before the Brecon Beacons. So I literally go past it on the way. Actually, on the pretty much about 10 mile the other side of that road is where the opening kind of train shot is from Apostle reservoir there. So it's quite nice that he actually used fairly local parts to where he was from for some of his stuff. But yeah, so he'd have lived in Cardiff for a bit, I'm guessing, and then suddenly he gets an opportunity to go out and shoot footsteps, and he's like, "Yes, I will do this," because he had a degree in screenwriting. So it's not specifically kind of shooting. So obviously he's got a kind of film brain, but it's mainly the writing part. Which is hilarious, because when you get to his later films, in the nicest way, it's kind of not the writing that you turn up for. It's a real other exaction.
He's one of these filmmakers that I think will do as much of it himself as he possibly can. So he writes, directs, and edits all of his films, doesn't he? And I think he says it in interviews, like paraphrasing a bit, but I think it says along the lines of, "Look, I can't fight, and I can't sing. So the next logical thing for me to do would be to build films around people who can do things like that. So he's got a good sensibility for action, even though he doesn't practice martial arts himself. It's he leaves that to his his stunt teams and everything. But he's a big fan of the form of the genre, so he knows what he wants, what he's looking for, and he's got a good sense of that.
By the way, I didn't know he had done a segment in VHS 2. That's
I've only
fun.
seen the first one.
He had been making short films. He made one apparently called Samurai Monogatari before Footsteps. So I guess Asian action, something that he was very familiar with and interested in. But do we have anything else to touch on before we get into his first, I don't know, I don't want to say real movie, but like larger than $10,000 or pounds budget feature?
What, first film with actually like some money in it?
Yes.
No, I think we've got a good kind of grounding on kind of who he is and where he comes from. So I think probably get into it.
I do like the fact he still retains a bit of a Welsh accent as well. Just saying, it's quite nice.
Has it changed over the last couple of decades?
Well, I mean, some people, you move away for a bit, or you go and do other things, and you come back, and the accent kind of disappears. I mean, I've lived in Wales since I was 7. I wouldn't say I have a distinctly Welsh accent. But some people kind of
just when you say Welsh place names.
Well, yeah, but it's quite hard to say Welsh place names without putting a Welsh accent on them if you have a vague understanding of the language.
Hang on, can somebody
that's like saying French place names without trying to sound slightly French. It just doesn't work.
Can someone do a Welsh accent for my American ears, please?
No, because I'll butcher it.
No. I mean,
think of Anthony Hopkins in an interview.
Anthony Hopkins. That's
it's just, I would just call it all British, unless it's Irish or Scottish, and then I can pick it out.
The problem with the Welsh accent for someone who, even like me, I've got a lot of family in Wales, but even if you hear the accent quite regularly, unless you live down there, I think it's quite easy to veer into Indian.
Yes, that is a thing with Welsh.
Wait, do Indian people sound like Welsh people? Is that?
No, it's just some of the inflections.
It's a well-known thing that you try and put on a Welsh accent, and it does border into going slightly racist at times. I mean, I guess putting on a Welsh accent is racist if you want to class it like that. But yeah, I'm not going to try. Jacob can look that up in the meantime. Jacob is doing live audio research, so maybe we should have to talk over him. He's just gonna get him to watch a couple of episodes of Gavin and Stacey.
Or look up an interview of Charlotte Church on YouTube.
God, yeah. I'm looking at BBC Sesh has a video called Welsh People on Welsh Accents, but the first part of the video is how English people think Welsh people sound.
Yeah.
So it's not helpful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Right. Let's get on with some movies,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
otherwise we'll be here all day.
Somebody else say this movie first. I'm not gonna say it.
Marantau.
Marantau. I did listen to the terrible English dub of this film when I was
why
watching
did you
it.
do that?
It's the option I had. If I would have done Indonesian if dub was not the option that I had presented to me.
Are you a kind of, I'll do subs, but if dub is there, I will go for the dub?
No, I will do the original language. And yeah, I did watch part of the Raid 2 in Spanish though. Which
Should have asked for my signed DVDs. I would have no.
it is just as I could tell like the Spanish dub versus like how an English language dub would sound. It's weird. Like it's better in Indonesian. It just sounds much more natural.
What, in the original language? Strange that. Anyway,
Right?
right, Marantau.
Yeah, so in 2009, Gareth Evans made his big, so it's not really his first film, but like his breakout film. Is it's one that put him on the map, even before the Raid, because this was well received in kind of action cinema kind of circles. I mean, the tagline for this was, according to the DVD I've got, tagline was "All new style, all new moves, all new action."
That is a very 2000s kind of.
It is, yeah. So it's kind of, it's already marketed as, oh, you like your martial arts movies, but you probably won't have seen this martial art much before, because this is kind of like the breakthrough. It's not kung fu, it's not jiu-jitsu, it's not taekwondo. It's different, and it's more kick-ass than all of them put together, kind of thing.
The tagline on Wikipedia is, "In a city of violence, one man will stand and fight." So not as interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean that tag was probably to sell the DVD over here, I would think.
Oh, also, Kieran, his middle name is Hugh, spelled like your lecturer.
H-U-W. That
Yeah,
is
well, he's credited as that in this, isn't he? It's directed and edited by G.H. Evans.
Yeah. And it's quite funny. You, sorry, just checking the name of it. You were saying that kind of it advertises all new action.
Yeah.
And I go, this is true, until there is one kind of alleyway fight that I see that, and I go, I am having Killzone SPL flashbacks with Donnie Yen in it. There's a very famous alleyway fight scene in that's just Donnie Yen being Donnie Yen at the height of his powers in the mid 2000s.
I mean, something he does do, he remixes stuff, and he tries to do something you haven't quite seen in quite the same way before. But he's very cine literate, and he does do explicit references to the movies he likes as well. So it's kind of that halfway house. So the story of this is a young Sumatran man played by Iko Uwais. He's going on a rite of passage. That's the Marantau of the title. So his name's Yuda, not Yoda. Yuda, and which fun enough that they reference in the Raid 2, because that's his alias when he's going undercover in that. So it all comes back around.
Rescue prostitutes, I will.
So we go
reference or do not reference. There is no try. Sorry.
So he goes on this right passage. Basically, that these young men, they leave their village and strike out on their own, go into the city and look for work and try and have a bit of life experience under the belt before eventually return home, should they want to. But of course,
is it not necessarily martial arts based?
No, it's not. No, so he could be. I mean, he's going to this to teach Salat, but no. I mean, his brother, his older brother, talks about that, doesn't he? When he had his Marantau, he did other stuff in the city, but yeah, of course, being like this kind of country guy, this wide-eyed innocent from the sticks. Of course, he gets drawn into the dark underbelly of the city and ends up fighting to rescue a teenage sex worker who's been trafficked, her and her brother. So and he gets drawn to fight in this trafficking gang, basically, and has to kick a lot of ass to save the day.
Yeah. I will say it does take a little while for the ass kicking to kind of get into full flow.
Which I'd forgotten. I mean, it's only the second time I've seen it. I've not seen it for a few years, but I actually appreciate it kind of second time around. I thought that the early kind of character stuff, that like Calm Before the Storm, was quite essential, really, for all the character stuff to land.
And I did find it interesting because I mean the thing that Evans will become known for, especially from the raids, is the dynamism of the action sequences and the kind of choreography. Well, there's a few bits in here which is fairly rough around the edges, which I think I prefer because West's character is not a trained professional. He's just somebody that likes martial arts. And the people that, for most of the time that he's up against are not trained martial arts kind of professionals. So it is going to be a little bit sloppier.
As you say, it's definitely a lot scrappier, isn't it? It feels more kind of spontaneous. I mean, because Rama in the raid films, he's like an 80s action star, isn't he? He's like a killing machine. He's an unstoppable.
He's an unstoppable guy, but does I mean we'll focus on Naruto and then we'll come back to the raid.
Yeah. But in this Yuda, he does get his ass handed to him a few times. It's like it's almost set up to you think, oh right, this is it. He's going to show me his boss. But no, it's like the first big fight he's in. Yeah, he's out before quite quickly, and then he can bounce back from that. Yeah.
It's like this is something that is a problem with modern kind of action blockbusters in the US, in that you hire a big name star, but the big name star puts in the clause that he can't lose a fight. This is one of the problems. Is it Jason Statham's got that, hasn't he? And is it Vin Diesel?
Everybody in Fast and the Furious.
Yeah. So they have
Dwayne The Rock Johnson too.
Yeah, so they have to orchestrate ways for the fight to end without them winning in order to get it going. And this is a ridiculous thing. Because everyone watch it, because I don't know whether it's, it'll ruin his star image, but it's like, everyone knows Jason Statham can kick somebody's ass just because the plot calls for him to lose at one point. We don't think, oh my God, he's not the complete badass we all thought he was. No, he's still Jason Statham. Shut up. Like, we're not going to immediately lose faith in him because one small moment right at the beginning of a film where his character's still rusty and not properly out of retirement yet, he gets kind of caught out by 20 guys on one when he was in bed. Like, they're going to beat the hell out of anyone. Don't give us a get out clause for this. And that's what I love about this. And then eventually the raids is that kind of outside of kind of the big Hollywood stars, they don't have these clauses. So your main guys can get bumped and bruised and scratched and lose a fight and end up in hospital and come back out again, have to patch themselves back up again. It's so much more real to life.
We do need to stop. We do need to stop mentioning the Raid 1 for this movie, but one thing that stood out to me was the color. Like there's so much more red in this movie.
Yeah, I was going to mention that actually. It feels so kind of vivid and actually and more kind of emotional. It's like emotional out on the surface in this one, whereas everything's kind of more repressed and kind of buttons up, and it's all got that kind of grey wash in the raid, hasn't it? That kind of grey filter. But everything's very vibrant in this one, which is quite an interesting contrast.
It also seems very mid 2000s visually, though, which I mean, it's coming out of that era. But I think of Edward Norton's Hulk, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the films that this reminds me the most of is some Jackie Chan's early stuff, really, in kind of tonally, and the fact that, I mean, a lot of Jackie Chan films had him like playing a nobody arriving in the city and then defending the weak.
I was thinking, of him training at the beginning. This isn't Drunken Master, but a kind of, it's got a kind of ordinary person trying to learn martial arts that comes to it rather than somebody that's an expert right from the get.
Because before he sets out, so he has like his final meal with his mother and his brother. They kind of wish him well and kind of send him on his way. And the final thing he does night before, as you say, he has a final sparring match with his master, and prepares him for his journey. But in this, it's interesting because I think they do punctuate more of the action with like kind of comic beats, like you would in like a Jackie Chan film. I mean, with the raid films, it's like, yeah, you might be laughing, but usually it's because it's like, oh god, that's
Yeah,
awful.
it's
It's
a
like a
kind
body
of
shouldn't be
wincing
doing that.
sort of.
Yeah, it's like a reflex, kind of a nervous kind of reflex almost. But no, in this, I think they are generally they're meant to be like funny moments to
Yeah.
punctuate like the brutality, and just just like the club fight and just how again how slapdash it is, and just how people are just almost panicking, and just getting lucky or getting unlucky. It's
Yeah.
and
Annoyingly, starting to disprove my theory that all nightclub fights and action movies are started by John Wick.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to revise that and say that it was repopularized by John Wick.
But by the way,
like
is there a chance that John Wick was actually inspired by Gareth Evans? Is there any chance of that?
Well, Yayan Ruan was in John Wick 3, so
yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I think they all kind of feed each other. I mean, again, like Chad Stahelski and like Gareth Evans is a massive martial arts fan, and unlike Gareth Evans, he's actually got a stunt background. So
yeah,
I think he'd
Chad
know about
worked
like
on because Chad worked with John Wick on The Matrix, where
yes,
the stunt team were Hong Kong action guys, and I
yeah,
know that Gareth Evans was saying on the Raid 2 they got a Hong Kong kind of choreography and kind of action team in to help them with some of the larger set pieces that just Indonesia hadn't done before. So there is a lot of connections around there. So very possibly, I would be very much kind of surprised if by sort of the second film at least they hadn't seen at least one of Gareth Evans's films.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't just Iko Uesa's debut, but it's also, as Kieran kind of briefly mentioned there, it's the debut for Yayan Ruyan as well, who tends to be the lead choreographer on, well, it was on the Raid films, especially. And he's interesting because, Iko is incredible. I mean, a born star, but he's a young man as well. You expect him to have that kind of level of energy and stuff. And Yayan's like at least 15 years older than him, but he's just so formidable and wiry and amazing. I mean, he's got this nice sense, as we'll come on to the Raid films, where he plays two different characters in the two films. He can be absolutely terrifying, like just this tiny, wiry man, but just you would believe he would absolutely just destroy you. They can also he can also play this kind of repressed kind of emotion as well. This kind of sadness behind his eyes as well. He can do subtle as well. It's kind of interesting.
There are times Sam will get this. Jacob probably won't. I'm hoping Sam will get this. There are times, especially the hair. He reminds me of Wolf from the original Gladiators.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
I don't know why, but it was just like, it's the older guy with the hair that suddenly turns around and kicks your ass.
Yeah. I mean, in this, it's very much like a supporting role, really. It's he's at the start and then he turns up towards the end to have a fight with them in a massive elevator. I mean, it's a ridiculous and massive elevator, basically to give them space to actually do a.
It is a Wallace and Gromit elevator.
Yeah. And Matt Flannery's cinematography is another big part about what makes a Gareth Evans action film what it is, because it kind of is very, very smooth in terms of how it kind of takes in the action and weaves in and out of it, and kind of just it's usually placed a bit far back, and it's not kind of broken up by choppy editing or anything like that. We want to see everything in camera and prove that it's all been done kind of as real as it can be. I mean, interesting. I was reading about. I think especially the Raid 2 basically talks out they weren't pulling their punch. Well, they weren't punching each other like full welly, but they weren't like doing like stage punches. They weren't stopping. They were just controlling the power of their strikes basically, because it just had a better in camera effects for them. I think they were kind of trying to start to play around with that here as well. But it's very kind of. It's not like, oh, look at me kind of cinematography, but it's very much kind of making the action speak for itself. And I think after years of Bourne and early Daniel Craig Bond era kind of fights, which is like cut to bugger in the edit, just this kind of visceral kind of
shaky cam kind of getting
shaky,
worse and worse.
Shaky cam rapid fire cutting and stuff where you can't really tell sometimes, I mean, it was worse than like Quantum of Solace, where you couldn't even tell where characters were in the frame half the time, let alone what they're actually meant to be doing in
Yeah.
it. But this, yeah, it's very much like, let the action speak for itself, pull back, and we'll just follow it, and as unobtrusively as we can. It's not like docu style because it's a bit more dynamic than that, but it's not getting in the way, which I think's
Yeah, and it's not quite I'm going to say Kingsman style either.
no.
Because Kingsman style, I mean, Vaughan will kind of eventually go off on one to make it absurdist.
Although interestingly, I think it's Kingsman. I think Brad Allen, who choreographed that, I think he was possibly influenced by these in terms of some of the movements, things like that. We've seen a few times that kind of that flip forwards, into like a move. It's kind of that's used a few times in Kingsman. I think that's a kind of Brad Allen special. I'm sure he was possibly was aware of kind of some of the go-to moves in Sonata as a style and probably hybridize that. So.
There's certainly a thing of, because I mean the one thing, I mean the Kingsman 2 did it too much, and then the Kingsman completely overdid it. In terms of kind of the stylistic quality of it, overdoing it to the point of being absurd. But the first one, I think, got it just about right at times. For example, the pub fight at the beginning, where the movements and the thing about those is that you can criticize them for being overly stylized or whatever the hell you want, but at least in that one you could at least tell exactly what was going on all the time, and this is something that very much comes into the directing of these.
I think one thing that kind of typifies Salat as a style, though, I mean, just to generalize, just generalize it, is you literally is a full body martial art. You're using every part of your body in kind of in your kind of self defense. So it's very cinematic, and kind of interesting, and that like no two moves seem alike. You're not just throwing punch after punch, or with the odd breaking up with the odd kick. There's a full body thing, and there's just so many different options for you, to cause create bodily harm, that way.
And it's a constant movement, it's a constant rolling action, never stopping. It's very kind of jumpy and frenetic.
And again, going back to the Jackie Chan thing, it's like, and the use of props and everything like that, because again, the traditional martial art does involve like weapons, traditional weapons, the knives and the and the staffs and things. There's various traditional kind of Indonesian weapons they would employ, but just pick it throughout the scene, just using everything at your disposal, and just kind of give you the edge.
Well, I mean, Jackie Chan's thing of doing that was to deliberately differentiate himself from Bruce Lee, wasn't it? He was a very serious, straight kind of action hero, whereas Jackie Chan was like, I want to be comedic, I want to do things differently.
Because he was as well trained and as versatile as Bruce Lee was, but I think he said he was like, I'm not as fast as Bruce Lee. I'm probably not kind of, obviously he's very physically fit, but he says he's like Bruce was another level, so I had to individual myself by bringing comedy into it, by bringing props and using the environments, and making myself distinct. Again, like someone like Donnie Yen had to do the same thing. Had to further push that and evolve it.
Kieran, we talked a few weeks back about production. This is just a snippet from an interview with Evans, actually about the raid. But he says on Maritime we had cranes, dollies, steadicams, etc., and plenty of time. Where do you think this slightly larger budget was going into for this film, when comparing it with The Raid? Do you think it's mainly just the time element, if that was a grace they were given?
Well, it's multiple locations for a start, isn't it? I mean, so the Raid is essentially the single.
Sorry, you're saying that Maranto had a larger budget than The Raid?
That is what he says. He says The Raid, we were working on a much tighter budget, and I see The Raid is 9.3, so I mean it's at least a little bit bigger than 9.3 million. And I would assume that time.
That was The Raid. I thought The Raid 2 was 9.3 million.
Oh, maybe I misread that.
Budget for the original Raid was $1.1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. He was working on slightly larger than that.
Then. And I'm just going to say, if you can make The Raid 1 for $1.1 million, and that's it, nobody in Hollywood has a single excuse for anything. Just going to say.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, good.
sure.
That helps a lot. That it is smaller than 9.3,
Yeah,
certainly. But I
yeah,
mean, locations.
yeah.
If they had more time than they did to shoot the raid, I mean, is there anything in this that you see that's like, yeah, that took a lot of money, other than, those things?
In Morantown, not really that much. I mean, I guess just the fact you've got multiple locations that eats up your time more than anything. And yes, you can block it. And there's some outdoor sequences as well, especially outdoors at night, which
Yeah.
are the most expensive to shoot.
I was looking at box
Yeah.
office, by the way, instead of budget.
Yeah,
Whoops.
I was gonna say, but yeah, outdoor at night are the worst to shoot because if you're shooting at night, there's certain things with the scheduling that you have to do in order to let people sleep back over, and that eats up your time if you're renting equipment. So if you shoot nights and then go to days, you have to allow like a 24-hour period.
A24.
Um, an 24-hour period. So if you but then you've got some extra time as well, so it could end up being like 36 hours or whatever, depending on what it is. So for all that time, you're kind of still paying the rent on the equipment and stuff like that.
Mm.
Whereas, so the usual thing would be to shove all your days in together and then all your nights right at the end,
Yeah.
or the other way around to minimize the changing over. Sometimes you can't do that because then, of course, your locations, your access to those might change up your schedule, which is like, so
Yeah.
it would be great if we could do all the days
Yeah.
then, but the location we can only
Yeah.
access at this time, which means that switches up. So
Yeah.
shooting at night and outdoors, which is always an environment that you can't control as much. If it's raining, that screws everything up. People passing by in streets, that kind of thing. And if it's at night, you have to pay overtime and stuff like that, and extras at night times. It's just worse.
And I suppose that's one of the reasons why I like to, the biggest kind of nighttime sequences, the fight, the shipping container yard at the end, isn't it? Which is, in theory, I suppose, a location you'd have a degree of control over.
Yeah.
It's like there's not going to be too many people like wandering past and everything like that. But obviously they've paid for to be there, for how long it took. But
yeah, well, I mean, the thing I was always told is if you got to shoot something inside a building at night, shoot it at day, black out the windows so don't show them,
yeah,
because then you
Yeah.
don't have to pay the extra for everyone shooting it at night, or the crew and everything, who'd have to pay 1.5 times the amount.
Yeah. I found it interesting how, even though this is only a few years, only a couple of years before the raid, everyone just looks so baby faced in this. Ico especially, and
With his hair.
yeah, with his hair, with his like boy band haircuts.
Well, it looks like he bulked up a little bit for the raid, also.
I think he did,
and perhaps the
yeah,
raid too, also.
yeah. But you also had Donny Lancia, who also playing his brother, who also played Rama's brother in the raid. Looking younger, and who else? And Alex Abad, who plays Bijou in the raid 2. He's he's the low level gangster in this, the pimp. And again, he just looks so different. He looks different out of his kind of Bond villain get up. It's like
Yeah.
I used to see him, without the glasses and the leather gloves and the cane. But
but Gareth Evans is Welsh Indonesian Sergio Leone, like that. That's what we're learning.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I'd say this is his kind of most socially conscious film today. I think it's very much about social issues in Jakarta of the time. It's trafficking gangs, and kind of poverty and desperation, and what they kind of found in like Indonesia's kind of biggest city. I mean, like just in like. I mean, I'm sure it's the same when this was made, but probably in the last decade, especially, it's been more prominent. Various stories about horrible stories about like people being found like dead in the back of like container lorries and shipping containers. Just dozens of people just shoved in there and against their will and just carried up over to the other side of the world. To be sold into slavery essentially. And it's a horrible kind of aspects of the human condition, but I think he's making a point about this. It's like, as we said, it's like someone's got to stand up for these people who can't stand up for themselves, and and making that kind of political point. I mean, there are political elements, to the raid, but I think they're more of a heightened reality than this is, I would say.
Yeah, and I think in the raid and eventually in Havoc as well, that's just come out, the kind of any political stuff that you put in there is an excuse to get you to your next fight scene. Whereas from here, it's kind of the two are fairly even keel in where they both go together.
Yeah, and we've got to care about Yuda and about the people he's defending. Else this just wouldn't work at all.
It's exactly the kind of issue where you can't root against the hero that is saving sex trafficking victims like that. There's that really weird Christian sex trafficking movie. I can't remember, Freedom of Silence or whatever. I don't remember what it's called now, but
what are you expecting us to know?
Sound of Freedom?
Sound of Freedom? I don't know. Freedom of Silence is a different Christian movie, I guess. But even in that movie, I'm going like, yay, Jim Caviezel, save those sex trafficking victims.
Yeah. I mean, so Astrid is the is the main
Sound of Freedom.
Girl. Astrid is the main girl who's trying to rescue in this, and we don't know exactly what her age is, but I think we're meant to presume she's a teenager, and and obviously she's basically caring for a much younger brother, because their parents ran off, essentially, and. I think we do see this kind of experience through her eyes, and Prof doesn't see herself as a victim at first. She kind of sees, I'm making a living by myself. I'm kind of having to work in this profession. But it's I think she'd say. I mean, I think she does at one point. It's my choice. I'm doing all right. I'm able to eat because of this, and then this. Her hero comes along, thinks he saved the day with her, and says, "Oh, thanks! I've just lost my job now. I'm gonna have to do something else."
You've beaten up my boss as a result. My boss isn't gonna pay me.
Yeah. Which only results in her getting beaten further herself, further into the film. But it's quite hard hitting that kind of stuff, and I think the actress plays it real well.
The voice actress, all right.
Siska Jessica.
Yeah, her.
Yeah. Oh, so she's 37 now. So she would have been in her 20s when she made this. But yeah, I think she's definitely the character's definitely meant to be younger, I think.
I will say I've just seen on Wiki, so I don't know how well this is, but it screened at the inaugural Action Fest on the 17th of April 2010, where it won the jury award for best film, and one of the people on the jury was Chuck Norris.
Wow!
You have your film praised by Chuck Norris,
that guy can kick. I'll tell you. That's what. I also like looking through the critical responses where it's all a bunch of outlets you've never really heard of, or I've heard of Film School Rejects, but I don't think of them as an outlet for
a
low budget Indonesian martial arts film. It's
not
like The Guardian.
I don't think it got covered by the major trades. Generally did it, and
Guardian or Chicago,
It's also fun to learn that there used to be Twitch Film, which I'm assuming had to rebrand to Screen Anarchy because of the rise of Twitch. So, bummer for them.
Yeah. The things you learn, the more you know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a reason that kind of the raid was kind of the monster hit, it was, and it kind of captured people's imagination. But I don't think, you could do a lot worse than this in terms of an introduction to his kind of his filmmaking style. I think it's
interesting because everything is there.
Yeah, just in a slightly less kind of pristine kind of form. He's still trying stuff out and working out exactly what his voice is actually going to be. But I think it's pretty strong even at this stage.
I was going to say, I will say there was a bit where he's on the kind of wooden scaffolding
Yeah.
at one point, and I suddenly have a flash to Shang-Chi where they're on the kind
Yes.
of the scaffolding
Yes.
beside.
Yeah.
I'm like, is
Yeah.
this a thing, or is this just a thing they do quite often in martial
And
arts
both
movies?
films are referencing a Jackie Chan film. I can't remember which one, but there's
Yeah, I
definitely
was
a
going
big
to say this is a thing
bamboo.
that
There's
happens.
definitely a big
But,
bamboo scaffolding fight in one of them. Um,
yeah.
Nice.
Oh, we haven't talked about the brothers in this. So the the leader of the sex trafficking gang, these two French question mark.
They're like French Australian
I
accented
don't know.
kind of.
I don't know. And I know that the main one, the boss, he is a French martial artist. So I presume the characters are also French. But they basically represent like the worst of like white Western privileged invaders to the country, essentially. And they're very fun to hate, because they're awful people.
Yeah.
Also, there's the pimp named Johnny, which is spelled John with an I down in the cast, but like I kept hearing it like the guy in the room because bad dubbing, like, oh, Johnny.
Yeah. So that's the guy played by Bijou from the Raid 2. But yes, so these brothers, they're basically they're just absolute sociopaths, never mind to each other, but to basically everyone they meet, and just getting their own way, trying to get a group of girls together to abuse, essentially.
I have just seen, looking up Alex Abad because I was just curious. He starred in a Netflix film 2 years ago called Monster, which this is a thing that doesn't get brought up enough. I just want to bring this up. This is a tangent, but this is a film looking. It looks like an Indonesian film. Just looking through Wiki, country Indonesia, but it's a remake of an American film. So just to point out,
Called
remakes
Monster?
do go. No,
is
The Boy Behind the Door. Remakes go the other way as well. Like,
Right. Okay.
this is a thing that doesn't get brought up.
What Indonesian remake of an American film do you want to see?
I don't know. But I want.
I want Maltese Falcon, but with the martial arts in it.
I want Muppets Christmas Carol, but with the martial arts.
Apparently, there was a Korean version of an Inspector Calls out about 5 years ago, and I think it did have an action element to it somehow.
I know there was a 2-part, I think, Japanese version of Murder on the Orient Express about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And
they call it Murder on the Western Express, though.
No, I'm fairly sure that like Bollywood has done a version of Elm Street, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
me and Jacob
possibly not with the singing.
Me and Jacob watched the Bollywood remake of Forrest Gump together the other year, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. So just saying, stuff goes the other way. That's my link into this. And actually, it's interesting as we move on to the raid, because I think we're finishing up Moranto.
I was just going to say with the brothers, so basically they're basically in it to give them a final boss fight. It's like it would be a bit of an anticlimax, especially after he's fought Yaya and such impressive kind of physical kind of challenge. So of course he doesn't just fight the brothers one by one; he has to fight them both at the same time in the shipping container yard. And basically the leader is basically doing most of the work, and the other guy seems to be just there because he's tall, he can kick high.
Why not? Talking to boss fights, though, one thing I was thinking of when I was watching, again, I think I watched pretty much all of his filmography aside from the original Raid because I've seen it so many times in the past sort of 24 hours, that the men kind of running evil, corrupt organizations in action movies can function as a final boss. Women normally don't. They're either the badass hired by the main bad guy, or they're the powerful businesswoman at the top that's in the suit, who kind of gets shot right at the end. They're never normally the ass kicking chick is never the person running the organization itself. That was just something that reared randomly when I was watching this. When I was watching Havoc, there's one of those as well. It's never like they're never the kind of the main bad guy. Like James Bond would be completely different. You know what I mean? Like
spoilers for the Raid 2, but I'd argue the main male boss of that also does not get to fight.
I'm not saying that all main male bosses get to fight. I'm saying that main bosses often do, whereas women 99% of the time, if they're the main boss, don't.
You know what? Same with the Raid 1, actually.
I think that the exception that I can think of, which fun enough we discussed last year, is Sharon Stone and Catwoman. So always an exception to the rule.
Yeah, but I mean,
as
a general principle.
I'm not saying it's a good exception.
Sorry, I thought you meant within Gareth Evans' filmography specifically, and not wider.
No, but it was kind of a thing when I was watching Havoc, because there is a main kind of badass kicking woman in the. I hate the term badass. I'm gonna shoot it when it turns out a strong female character. She's a badass. Shoot the phrase. But there's one in Havoc, but she's not kind of the final boss. There is another character who is the final boss, but they don't do the ass kicking.
That's why you have female like bosses at the top, so they hire the badass women instead of overlooking them in the interview.
Yeah, but I'm going to say, my point was something like this, Moranto, like the badass men at the top are running the company, and they could also kick ass. You have those two functions, which men seem to be able to occupy in kind of martial arts and just action movies in general. But women
I mean, if we're honest, there wasn't really a reason for the brothers in this to be able to fight as well, was there? It's like they could have just been evil businessmen, but yeah.
We've got to have a big boss at the end.
Kind of world. I mean, it goes back to like Enter the Dragon, Mr. Han, to look at him, and definitely with the actor, he wasn't really a physical threat, but they had to glue some stupid hand prosthesis onto him to make him a match for Bruce Lee. And it's very obvious in that film they're editing around this middle-aged guy who can't really fight.
Anyway. I did not expect us to spend 40 minutes on this movie.
No. I mean, let's be honest, we spent about 20 minutes on the movie and we talked around it for the rest.
Yeah. So Moranto, good movie, worth checking out. But yeah, this arguably ran that walks so that Raid could run.
So if you're a fan of this show, you may know that my memory is terrible. If I haven't said it, you can tell. Like, I have an awful memory. But I do remember Kieran and Sam saying that The Raid is a great movie. That has come up multiple times. It's been on
one of the best action movies of all time.
Yeah, it's on my need to watch list. But the great thing about my bad memory is if you said it, I didn't know it was a martial arts film going in. So I sit down to watch it expecting, oh, they're going to go up this tower, killing people, blah, blah, blah. No, that I had a terrible summary of it in my head. Instead, it is this amazing martial arts police claustrophobic action movie in Indonesian also. So just putting all that together, very exciting for me.
If only kind of in the West, all kind of cops were trained like they are in apparently Eastern movies, because aside from, they're either like bumbling comedy characters that you get occasionally, for example, something like The Wailing, or they're all absolute badasses, like just absolute like beasts. This is one of the ones they're an absolute beast. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, my first thought, like, I'm watching Rama. I'm calling him Rama because I'm not saying his name. At the beginning, I'm watching him do, punching bag, martial arts kind of training, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. He's doing it to stay in shape, but like, you're about to go shoot a lot of bad guys. Like, what are we doing here? No, he is going to be punching a lot of bad guys. He's very fortunate that the majority of the people in this tower have lead pipes or machetes or their fists as a weapon of choice.
I do love in that opening scene how efficiently it establishes so much about Rama's character, is like his dedication and discipline, his religion. Even he is a Muslim action hero, which you don't see very often. It's,
no.
That he's got a pregnant wife, and that he's doing it all for his family. It's really a nice bit of character work just in like a short couple minute scene.
I do wish we had more Muslim martial arts films now. We have a French one. I'm gonna have to go seek those out. But these two
are an awful lot, but we just don't get exposed to them because they'll come across a like 1 day showing in about 2 cinemas in each country in Tamil that you don't know about unless you happen to be scrolling through the programs on the app and go, oh, that was a thing that I've never heard of.
There's definitely action subcultures in various film industries across India, I'm sure.
There's one I've seen where it's a Muslim film about killing Salman Rushdie, and it's like 4 hours long. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about The Raid, which Kieran has seen apparently too many times to count. He has the poster behind him, shares a country and may or may not stalk the director. We're not clear on that.
I actually don't, to be honest.
Sam has seen it 4 times, but I've now seen it twice. And my first time watching it was good. The second time, I would say, is a lot better. But essentially, it is the story of police going to fight a gang and, raid them, thus the name. Well, if you're in the U.S., it's the Raid Redemption, which makes it confusing because they could not secure...
Which I'd argue is a spoiler.
they could not secure the...
But you only know that after you've seen the film.
They could not secure the rights to the title, The Raid, so it became The Raid Redemption. And so I'm sitting there trying to rent it, and I'm going, wait, The Raid 2, The Raid Redemption, which sounds like The Raid 2... Which and I got
sometimes the Raid 2 is called the Raid Barradeen, which was Barradeen, which was the name of. This is how the raid came about. He was trying to get a film called Barradeen made a script, and they couldn't for ages.
Which was going to be a big prison riot movie, which he couldn't afford to make.
He couldn't afford. So he essentially did a kind of stripped down sort of thing, which was vaguely kind of thematically related but had nothing plot wise, so that became the Raid Redemption, and then whilst they were making that, they went, we can actually take some of this and rework a lot of Barradeen into what would become the Raid 2,
including we'll get to the Raid 2. We're not talking about the Raid 2. The Raid 1, very compact, all takes place inside of the tower, which it's an apartment building run by gangsters. So there's these normal tenants who live their everyday lives. They may or may not unwittingly be part of the crime. It's not clear to me fully, but there are certainly people who are in on it because they have stashes hidden in their secret stash walls.
Yeah, and I think it's implied that they receive protection, and then in turn they act as spies, and lookouts and stuff. So I think they're involved. Which will happen when you got a massive drug lab on the top floor of your tower block.
Which I wouldn't put the drug lab on the top floor. I think I'd put it on the bottom. I don't. Maybe you want the fire to start at the top and work its way down. I don't know which one's better, but the bad guy, he is able to kill people, but they need to be incapacitated, as we see at the beginning, where he's shooting the people lined up on the ground, and then the last guy runs out of bullets, and he puts the gun on his shoulder, and he goes over and opens the bullet drawer to get the hammer and bash the guy over the head. And it is awesome. But then there's the cops, and apparently Rama is one of the rookies. That wasn't clear to me. Does it say at any point that he is a rookie specifically?
I think it's like his first big mission, isn't it? I mean, he's been a cop for a while, but I think he's newly arrived in this unit.
They are underutilizing him.
Yes, this is what is discovered.
Well, and there's the lieutenant who wears no safety gear other than a chest protector, and he's the classic old man cop. It wouldn't be surprising if he said this was his last job, big one before retiring. And then there's the sergeant, who is kind of the boots on the ground in charge guy.
Who is also a very good martial artist. I mean, if you want to see other kind of really full-on Indonesian action films, watch The Night Comes for Us. He's in that, and that's
he's very good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Also, his name is Jaka, which took me a while to figure out they weren't like shortening Jakarta, like that wasn't a nickname for the city. So that was fun to learn that was his name, and that's why they kept saying it over and over again. But yeah, he's the boots on the ground leader. The lieutenant does say, "Hey, there's these newbies. We need to keep them behind." I'm unclear on who he was talking about. I'm unclear on where they actually got left behind.
Don't worry, I'll defend you all with my unprotected head.
Yeah. Wouldn't you want as many bodies as possible to throw at this problem? I don't know. Why don't they have any, like, I know it's Indonesia. I know maybe their police are not as like super funded like America's, where, you know, they have drones fly over your house and go, yeah, there's 10 people in there before they blow the house up. But yeah, there's no kind of technology, seemingly no prep other than we're going to go upstairs and shoot everybody. Or not even, we're not going to shoot everybody. That doesn't seem to be the main goal either.
To be honest, you say that it might not be as well funded, but their actual units on the ground are worth about 5 times as much as Western police officers seem to be, because they can kill everything in sight without breaking a sweat.
And yeah, the gunfire, unfortunately for them, gets, well, they meet the guy who, the glasses guy, who's a normal dude getting medicine for his wife, and they're like, hey, can you buzz us in? So they, you know, I don't know, that's how they could get in. He lets them in. He's got a pregnant, sick, no, she's just sick. She's not pregnant. Sick wife upstairs on like the 7th floor. And I feel bad for this guy. He does remain safe, but it's a wonder he is not murdered in the carnage.
Whereas those kids, I do not feel bad for them. They're dicks.
Well, the kids they're little snitches, but they've also been you know, brought into this lifestyle unwillingly, surely. Like it's like the gangster kids here selling drugs. I have a lot more empathy for them than the adults.
I was going to say, if that is the only life you've known, that is your life. You know no different.
The little kid, he's the lookouts. They're like, oh, we got to stop this little kid. But the lieutenant is the one who shoots through the door as he yells up to the other kid. And that it's the first great action moment where the bullet goes through the door, through the kid's neck. But just not in time, as he is able to warn the other lookout.
There's definitely one thing about this that, thankfully, action movies in Asia do not shy away from blood. Like, you imagine, it's literally about 10 times the amount of bloodshed or something like John Wick, because normally they're just kind of like gunshot, little squib of blood, move on.
Yeah, or it's added in post, you know, like a really rubbish.
These guys just go out all out brutality.
Yeah, well, and can we say that is an Indonesian trait, or would we say that is a Gareth Evans trait?
I mean, Gareth Evans definitely goes in for it, hence it is the fine art of ultraviolence.
Yes.
But it's just kind of, I'm going to, again, loosely go Asia to differentiate from kind of Anglosphere, mainly UK and US and perhaps Canada directors. Those under the Hollywood system doesn't like to do as much blood.
Yeah. I mean, not so much mainland China, but like, definitely Hong Kong action cinema tends to be quite bloody. You know,
Korea can do it as well. Let's be fair.
It's interesting we bring that up because in this interview, Evans talks about John Woo and Sam Peckinpah being gunplay inspirations for the film, which I mean, it hardly features guns. At a certain point, like, characters are literally throwing away their guns, and you see other things.
I would say actually,
guns jam, a knife doesn't.
We might mention it a bit towards the end, but I think Havoc is probably more his tribute to people like John Woo, because there's a lot more actual gunplay in that, isn't there?
Yeah,
and he also mentions Takashi Miike and Takashi Kitano as inspirations for this film.
Oh, definitely Miike, yeah. Well, I mean, 3 years after, Miike goes and gets Yan Ruan to put him in Yakuza Apocalypse.
That's true.
Which is one of the greatest martial arts films of all time. Greatest. It's mad.
I mean, keeping on Evans' inspiration here, he said he drew on Die Hard and Assault on Precinct 13.
Killing a kid, obviously.
Yeah, Escape from New York. And the interviewer, this is from fareastfilms.com. They say, "Have you seen Breaking News?" And he was like, "It's interesting you say that because I haven't." So apparently this is also like the film Breaking News, but not consciously similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's coming from all over the place. He says later, and we kind of touched on this earlier, that he's a big cinephile. The way he communicates with is Flannery, is that his cinematographer?
I think so, yeah.
The way they communicate is like, I want a Sam Raimi shot here. So we did this tracking shot that spiraled into a Dutch angle. And then I would say, I want a shining shot for this, a low angle shot of the door. And that's how we would talk. We'd riff on different movies, but try and find a way for it to feel organic. And then the interviewer compares him to Tarantino. So there you go. Gareth Evans is coming from the school of, I watched film as well. But yeah, going back into the movie, they've captured a few people sort of quietly on the lower floors, but after the lookout hits the PA system to tell everybody that police are here, they start escaping. So like one guy crawls through his zip-tied arms and pulls out a machete to murder the cops in the room. There's snipers that are put up around the place to kill cops. The cops outside get blown up in their truck, or I guess just shot a bunch. And then the truck rolls away. It's a lot of fun because this portion of the film is the gun-based portion. A bunch of the gangsters with guns come into the stairwell and start shooting up the cops, and a bunch of the cops get shot, but some of them don't, and then they're returning fire and killing people, but then they change angle, and so they're shooting the cops again. And finally they do end up in like a room, and that's the part where they shoot a hole in the floor or cut a hole in the floor, or blow up one of those. And there's a camera shot that took two different cameramen because they didn't quite have the budget to do it the way they wanted to, of Rama going through the floor for the fun shoot 'em up scene. And then also I think it's blow up because a different cop who reminds me of the sergeant, but I don't want to say looks like it because that sounds racist, falls to the floor and gets shot a bunch, and his ear's missing. And but then Rama goes through the floor to shoot people, and boy, is that fun.
I mean, the using two different cameramen is something which will come back into the Raid 2.
Into a key scene in the Raid 2.
One of my favourite things ever. I will say one of my favourite things, and I don't know if you can find it online because Gareth Evans showed it to us from his own computer, one of his own files. There's... or at least it showed the scene. I can't remember if he showed the behind the scenes thing. There's a particular moment in this. So essentially the main tower has a kind of central stairwell where it's kind of a big hole right down the middle, and then you've got a walkway around each floor with several corridors going off, and then you go up, and it's like that. So it's almost like there's almost like a big hole right in the middle with a walkway around each level. And there's one point in the... By the way, this tower is not that tall. They made about 2.5 to 3 stories of it, and then put green screens like top and bottom. So a green screen at the top, and then like a mattress kind of at the bottom.
And Evans prefers Evans prefers to construct sets where he can, not from like a budgetary perspective, but because it gives them more flexibility of the action. It's like you can design a scene around like what he's built essentially. So
but there's a particular moment in this, and sorry, you're just talking about kind of the filming stuff with it. There's a particular moment in one of the action scenes. So there's this big action scene because obviously working their way out, they're getting attacked, and there's a fight on like floor 7. I think there's like 2 different ones that are almost the same. But there's a moment where he kind of pulls somebody back into the stairwell, throws him off the kind of down the stairwell, and it lands on the wall kind of a couple of rows down, and kind of lands like that. And they named it the backbreaker. They named it the backbreaker. That was actually done in 2 ways, essentially by kind of having padding and then using wires, and they calculated it to pull people across, somebody like a stump former across, and land half on one way, obviously with all the padding and protection, and then do it again, and then land the other way, and they'd stitch it together in post to do it like that.
That's clever. Yeah.
Now, they were absolutely terrified because they almost got shut down, or they reckon they did, because this was the plan. But obviously, this involves essentially putting a load of wires on somebody and yanking them very quickly across the room. The first time they tried it, they got it wrong. And the stunt guy, like, hit something, like one of the other walls, fell down, and was immediately rushed to hospital. I can't remember the extent of the injuries, but they were like, oh my God. And they were like, even in somewhere where kind of health and safety isn't as tight as perhaps kind of Western countries, because mostly because the kind of film industry and the infrastructure isn't as big there, so the regulatory argument is tight. They were like, we are going to just get shut down because of this. Thankfully they didn't, but every time I see that, I go, this stuff, the way they've done it is there's pros and cons of kind of practical stunts. The pros are it's real, it's physical, and aside from a couple of bits right at the end where they just kind of stitch it together, they kind of had also a shot of somebody lying there, and they did half, and then essentially kind of merged them together in like a frame or two. Yes, that's great, but when you do things for real, there also is a massive danger things can go wrong.
Well, because
every time I watch that shot, I go, yeah, that's dangerous what they were doing there.
Because most of my image of Indonesia now is through this lens, I can only assume that they knew it was a martial arts related injury, and that there's tons and tons of those coming into the Jakarta medical.
Half of the Jakartan hospitals are just from people with stab and bullet wounds from like martial arts fights in bars.
The way Gareth Evans describes the going through the floor. He says, I wanted a camera to follow him down through the hole and continue the fight in one shot. One of the reasons I thought about it was because of scheduling a budget. We didn't have the budget for specific rigging to send the camera down, turn, twist, action. So we did this DIY version of it where we had two camera operators, one on the top floor, one on the bottom. And then we had the camera on a rig that's kind of like a steering wheel. When the first camera operator passes it through, he kind of twists it, and the guy on the second floor is on a table and is able to catch the camera and continue the movement. So there's the fun, creative behind the scenes camera work.
Very early Sam Raimi kind of DIY thing. Oh, we need the evil malignant force to crash through a window. How do we do that?
We'll just put the camera on a plank
and run on the window. Yeah, like there's some stuff about this that you just go like it's so just sort of handheld and practical and tactile, and that's part of what makes it great. Just like no money, we'll actually just do most of this for real, you know.
At some point in that sequence, Rama puts a propane IED in a fridge, turns it around, and blows all of the bad guys up on the other side.
I'm not sure how actually. That seems like something that if it was still going, Mythbusters would be trying.
No, just look. Any queries like that, it's because it looks cool. All right, just leave it alone.
It is very cool, at least. And the great thing about Rama, you know, in addition to all that other stuff, he leaves no man behind. He is determined to get his team out of this building, and so he grabs one ear guy and he's lugging him down the hallway for the awesome hallway fight scene, which you know, it's not like Old Boy. But it is like Old Boy. It's
There's people getting
it's not like Old Boy.
It's like if the Old Boy famous shot was also from every other angle, but lots of uncut, lots of real martial arts, fun action, knives.
And this also features the gnarliest kill in the film, doesn't it?
The door.
The use of the door jam,
That broken door,
that's fun. Then there's also the one ear guy getting his knife and stabbing the dude over and over again that's still alive. So he's not down and out. He's still in this. But this is a lot of lead pipe and machete people, and this is pretty much the point in the film where they have either run out of bullets or nobody else had a gun. I don't know. I'm unsure of why there are no more guns other than Mad Dog's one that he points at the sergeant. But
I don't know what Indonesian gun laws are.
I would imagine it'll be similar to it might be similar to Hong Kong in that it's a lot easier to get a blade than it is a firearm.
Yeah, civilians can apparently own firearms for self-defense, but with stringent regulations and permits required from the Indonesian. Not that this would stop a load of drug cartel guys, but I guess also you are like. It's run by the cartel, but most of them are civilians. They're just shady civilians, so they will come at you with a blade rather than...
I'm going without a bullets, is my theory. They use them all in the stairwell, and, there's maybe one guy with a gun left. Because I think somebody pulls a machine gun later. Sam, did you have something?
Yeah. No, I was just saying one thing we haven't really mentioned yet, because obviously, all these kind of groups of goons are kind of coming after them at this point. And they've been led by like the two main henchmen of the big boss drug kingpin guy, and we find out that Rama, as an ulterior motive for being part of this mission, he's also going in to get his older brother back. He was.
Okay, I didn't realize he knew that his older brother was in there.
Yeah. Yeah, his dad at the start says bring him back.
Whoops. Okay, yeah, missed that. I thought it was happenstance. He was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" But okay, yes, he is there to get his brother, who apparently is the consigliere. So he's the
yeah, and it's the classic dynamic of like your main kind of your main enforcers. You got the brains of the outfit, and you got the muscle essentially.
And the cops are divided into the two groups pretty much. So there's also the sergeant has hooked up with the lieutenant, and then they have a red shirt with them. And also I don't think Mad Dog has quite appeared yet. Instead, there's Machete main henchman. What's his name? Do we know?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm gonna call him Machete Guy. Machete Guy. They're on the 7th floor, and after killing all of the people that he's had to kill, Rama drags one ear dude into poor sick man. This is how we're referring to these people: sick guy with the sick wife. Glasses guy with the sick wife. They go, "Hey, can we hide in your drug crawl space?" And he's like, "Yes. Yes, you can." So they hide in there, and Machete Guy, he knows exactly which room to pick out to go investigate, probably following the body trail, I think is how I picked up on that. But he goes in there, and he's smashing up everything, and then starts stabbing into the stash wall, and his final stab just creates a perfect cut on Rama's face. He doesn't pull it out, leaves it in. And they are saved by Glasses Guy just pleading for the bad guys to leave them alone.
Yeah. But I just love how detail-oriented Rama is. He has forethought to reach up just as the machete is about to pull out to drag the blood trail off.
I will say it reaches up in an almost impossible kind of contortionism.
Yeah. The angles don't quite work, do they?
The angle is the same angle as somebody pointed out. Tom Cruise is about that far off the floor in Mission Impossible, but somehow manages to sweep his hand under to catch the sweat coming off. But I love that scene because it highlights something that Rama does elsewhere during a lot of his fights, which is although he's kind of going in, kicking ass and beating everyone up and slicing them up, there are times where he's just like, I've got to run. It's like you'd again going back to kind of the modern actions. You'd never see like Jason Statham go, "Oh crap, I'm outnumbered here. I've got to turn around and get the hell out of here," or Stallone, or any of those guys. They just wouldn't do it. Here, this character is like, okay, I can do things, but I'm one guy, and sometimes there's 5 of them coming at me. I do not have a hope in hell because I've just spent an hour getting my ass handed to me. And so he hides in the wall, because he knows this guy probably can kill him. Like, he's not going to just run into danger and hope that plot armor saves him.
Well, and he also wants to like fix up the ear guy too, or get him to safety.
He's got other priorities, and he's not just going to go, I hope that I don't know, the power of valor or whatever it is will see me through this. I need to run, and I love that about this movie, that he's not. Yes, he kind of does have plot armor because he's the main character. It's an action movie. He needs to get to the end, but it never. There's an awful lot of almost luck involved in it. It's not. There's plot armor, but you never feel like he's invincible.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, he certainly doesn't. But I do wonder if this movie pushes the limits of how realistic this martial art is. Like, I feel like we would see more MMA guys doing this martial art if you were able to so efficiently dispatch with bad guys. But I mean, that's any action movie, of course.
I was going to say, there's a certain amount of stuff that you have to give to any action movie.
Meanwhile, the other group, I don't know if I'm skipping things in here, but Sergeant Jaka goes to Lieutenant nearly white guy and is like, he reminds me of just like an Italian. Like, that's what he looks like to me.
Lieutenant nearly white guy.
Yeah, he goes to him and he's like, who set us up for this mission? Who put out the hit? Blah, blah, blah. Alluding to the fact that the lieutenant is going to end up being a corrupt cop. And does it ever actually say who put him up to it? Is it one of the bad guys from the second movie? I don't know. It wasn't clear to me.
Well, he's in the second movie. He's executed by that internal affairs guy, isn't he? So, so I don't know whether he's worked out what he's done, hasn't he? But yeah, I think it was more. I think it's supposed to be another gangster of some level, but I don't know. I don't know whether it's specifically one of the other characters we actually see in the second one or not.
Yeah, it's unclear who actually, but yeah, he's very obviously, a corrupt police officer in here raiding this building, wasting all of these young men's lives and all of this $3 or £3 per bullet ammunition.
35 pence per bullet.
Oh, thank you. 35 pence per bullet. My bad. But maybe in these times of inflation, it's gone up to 3.
I mean, this is in the UK. In Jakarta, for blanks, maybe it's 10, the equivalent of 10 pence per bullet. I don't know.
He wasted all of this over, corrupt cop stuff. And Sergeant Jaka is like, all right, well, let's go, I don't know, do cop stuff. But on the way to do cop stuff, Mad Dog, the coolest bad guy in this movie, he shows up with his crew. And old guy he's able to get away somehow with the other guy, and Mad Dog challenges Jaka to one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat because he has an ethos. He's not just a murder machine. Guns, they don't give you the same feeling. What do you remember the metaphor he uses? I don't, or simile. But
insert Heath Ledger from Dark Knight moment.
It's basically the same ethos. And
it doesn't have that same feeling of it's like a film on film versus a film on digital. He cares.
Admittedly, John Woo, I think it was John Woo at one point said kind of early on in his career there was a reason why kind of martial arts films took off in Hong Kong and China and Japan and Asia, more than kind of the shoot 'em up action films, is that they felt that kind of with the gun it was too quick and simple and was over easier. Therefore, the tension wasn't there as much. With martial arts, it's kind of fist on fist. It's a leveler playing field. It's a bit longer. It's a bit more suspenseful of who's going to win.
There's a romance to it as well, though, isn't there? It's like this, kind of carry on this tradition, from centuries past, and still using it in the modern age.
Well, that's why I love Indiana Jones. He doesn't put up with that nonsense.
Yeah. It's a very Western thing. You would not get that in Indonesia.
Yeah, but Mad Dog snaps Jaka's neck. It's awesome. And so Mad Dog is going to go upstairs and, I don't know, finish off the rest. He's going to the boss, whatever. And at this point, Rama hooks up with his brother, and they have a moment of conversation where they discuss that you are his brother, and he wants to save him, and other vaguely plot-related stuff before we go to more action.
Luke, I am.
And at that point, Andy basically decides though he's going to try and play the long game, but he's not going to turn Rama in. He's going to at least spare him, even if he doesn't really care about the other cops.
And so brother, he reports back to the boss along with Mad Dog. But bad news for Rama, and you'd think, or not Rama, well, it is for Rama too, but for brother especially. And you'd think he would have thought of this, because I thought of it. Earlier in the film, main bad guy, the boss, has this giant video set up so he knows where everybody is at all times in the building. Well, he saw that Rama and Rama's brother were hanging out together, that he spared his life, and that he knows exactly how many cops are left in the building. So he stabs him through the hand, and Mad Dog gets to take him off to do bad guy torture stuff in another room. And I don't know if like the goal is that Rama will find him, but that is what ends up happening. Rama stumbles upon the torture. It's not a freezer, but it reminds me of like a meat locker or something, because he's hanging from the ceiling on chains. And because Mad Dog is honorable, he has an ethos. He lets brother go as well. He lets Rama wrap brother's hand up. And they're going to do a 2-on-1 martial arts fight.
Although it's mostly Rama, because Andy kind of sucks at fighting.
He's not the best. He should have been going to martial arts training school with his fellow bad guys.
Yeah. And it carries on like from Maranta, because again, they're playing brothers, and he even has a line in that saying, "Oh, I was never as good at fighting as you. I had to do other things with my life. I had to get good at other things."
Fighting and Ruan in a small space near the end of the film.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I mixed this up or not, but whatever. It doesn't matter. There's the big martial arts fight there, which I would say does have some stage punching in it. These are the two like lead choreographers going at it, and there were a couple moments where I was like, I could see that you didn't make contact there. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think that possibly applied more to the Raid 2, because they're like bigger scale fights, and it was difficult for just to have everyone pull their punches basically. So they just said, just go at it properly, and we'll just try not to punch each other like at full power.
I will say this final fight does have one of the coolest kills ever with the use of a fluorescent light bulb.
Well,
which is very inventive.
What's fun about Mad Dog is he gets stabbed in the neck, but that like powers him up to do even better face slamming.
Like a berserker rage, doesn't it? It's like he knows he's dead at that point, but it's like, well, I'm going to take you guys with me.
Either that, or it's almost like the fight scene from Everything Everywhere All at Once with the award up the orifice. Fight scene, I'm gonna have to say.
Well, I guess I probably skipped over the meth lab or coke lab fight, which I mean that is somewhere in there. It's the giant drug lab fight scene.
There's lots more awesome fighting, Gary. At this point,
my favorite part of that is somebody uses cocaine as pocket sand. But it doesn't quite work. I was hoping I knew there wouldn't be, but I was hoping there would be a moment where Rama gets a little whiff, and then we see his eye go big, and the camera travels through his body as his arteries open.
The coke does not to him, like the original Fast and Furious.
So like what happens to Harley Quinn in Birds of Prey?
Yes. But no, he seems unaffected by the atmospheric drugs. But yeah, maybe that is what pushes him to kill Mad Dog. Who knows? But then Lieutenant Good Guy, well, turns out he's not Lieutenant Good Guy. He shoots Red Shirt Cop Guy. And he's going to take main boss guy hostage. And this is where we kind of find out that main boss guy he's really just boss guy. He doesn't do anything. He puts his hands up and he walks with cop guy, and he's going to be his ticket out of this joint. But unfortunately, Rama runs into them, and Lieutenant Corrupt, not good cop guy, he has the bad guy, and the bad guy's like, you think you're going to get out of this? You think they're going to let you join the elites just because blah, blah, blah? And he's like, oh, good point. I'm just going to shoot you in the head. And so he does, and it's another overhead blood flying shot.
There's a few of them in here.
Yeah, and, so good for them. Bad guy's dead. He didn't get to do any cool martial arts stuff. It just if you're not on your knees in front of him, he's pretty useless. And then, Rama, I don't know, he talks him into doing the right thing or something. He tries to shoot himself, but he's out of bullets.
Listen to your heart.
Yeah, he gives him classic good guy speech, and so him and the brother and lieutenant, they all walk out alive somehow. And I was like, why are there no more cops? But I guess all the cops died. Like, this is literally every police officer in Jakarta is now dead, is my only inference.
And this is the aspect where I think it's almost like a spoiler, in terms of how it was retired, because I think the redemption angle is possibly it's about Andy, because it was like his actions who, potentially save Rama a few times. He did have a change of heart, and it's almost like him coming back to the light side after a few years of making poor choices.
Oh, is his name Andy? That's cool. Good to know.
Andy, yeah.
I see that now.
And Andy with an I.
Yeah.
Andy Dufresne. No, sorry.
What's unfortunate for Andy, or his actor, is he did not get a role in any Star Wars films off of this. So
no, that's true.
That's a real bummer.
Yeah. Just go back to Star Wars briefly. So obviously Ico and Yayan both appear in The Force Awakens and cameo. Yayan designed the end lightsaber fights, or the initial version of the end lightsaber fights, but they rejected it for being too violent, apparently.
Yeah.
I want to see that version.
Yeah. That's a bummer. He needs to make like a YouTube where he goes, these sticks are, copyright free, and this is a fight that may or may not have been in a motion picture.
This is a generic sword fight,
Yeah.
Oh, man. No, that would have been because I was thinking about the way Kylo Ren fights, and I was like, there's no way that has anything to do with this movie. And no, it does not. But yeah, the raid is awesome. But here's my spoiler. I like the raid 2 more. It's just more my speed.
Hey, Jacob, so do I.
I
hate to tell you, you were saying that the guy who played Andy didn't get to be in Star Wars or anything.
Do we have good news?
Well, a kind of a link. It's not the second one, but Gareth Evans directed a VHS segment.
Yeah.
The second one. Apparently, Donnie Alamcia, who played Andy, was in VHS 94.
All right.
Good
for him.
There's a VHS thing going on there.
I really wish that some of these guys were also in Fast and Furious. That's the franchise that's really missing them. Because like 7 has Tony Jaa, and I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say they've had Tony Jaa. Now, I'm sure the next one, aren't they in there? Hasn't Ico and Yayan confirmed it, but I think they both might be in it.
I sure hope so.
Fast 11.
Is it just called The Furious now, or is that a different film?
Fast X Part 2.
Fast X Part 2.
Oh, okay. No. So they're just in a different film called The Furious. That's how I got confused. I got excited then.
I also got excited. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Still time.
Do y'all have any final thoughts on the raid?
No.
1.
No.
Redemption.
No, it's awesome.
I love the raid
and what does Gareth do? He goes on and does a bigger, badder, more epic version next.
Yeah, well, and it, just goes a completely different direction, as you already alluded to.
Yeah. And he has said in an interview that he didn't want to do the typical sequel thing of just doing the same thing but slightly bigger. So it was a deliberate thing to make this one feel different to the
he turns it into a proper. It sounds like it's a proper crime epic. I mean, this reminds me a lot of things like Heat and Infernal Affairs, but with violent martial arts thrown in.
Yeah,
good measure. Anyway, yeah,
Kieran,
that's
your cue.
I don't know why this is put on me. You guys prefer it, and it's kind of they kind of get Rama out of this thing, and then they're like, okay, yeah, we need somebody to go kind of undercover and do undercover cop stuff.
Yeah. And there's some back of poor Andy after surviving the first film gets offed in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, he gets off to. I'm sure Gareth Evans said, "I want it like the end of Casino." That's what he was going for.
Yeah, and so kind of. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I rewatched this today, and I lost track of the actual plot going on. Again, it's like this is the second time I've seen the Raid 2, and I do like it, but I kind of you don't really watch it for them.
Well,
it's true.
So somebody else can explain the storyline to me. That'd be great.
So it's basically a big old gang war, an Indonesian gang and a Japanese gang fighting for territory, and then a third gang, led by Bijou, basically wants to destroy everyone. So it's like a gang between like three different forces, and then the cops, internal affairs guy, are trying to manipulate events by having an undercover guy, Rama, kind of play over and off each other.
Again, I was watching this and trying to keep track of it, but it's like there's quite a few moving parts underneath the surface.
That's one of the reasons I love it.
And then it's kind of, there's an action scene between these guys, and then he's out, and then he's working for these guys undercover. But then these guys, are they the same guys working for that?
Yeah, and then for all the serious, gritty kind of gangster stuff, and then you have these cartoon henchmen who turn up and just to line things up. Literally, like the final third, it's like Bijou go, okay, we'll better bring in the big boys now, and get the assassin, Hammer Girl, and baseball Batman.
Oh yeah.
No, there's
who are all straight out of like a Bond film, aren't they?
They're comic book characters in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Hammer Girl from this, very similar to am I thinking of John Wick 2, where there's a girl with kind of like circular blades in a hallway fight? Is it John Wick 2? Something else in there. Hammer Girl is there, and then there's another one. Maybe it's Kingsman.
She reminds me of Kingsman. I don't know, No Legs Lady.
It's not No Legs Lady. There's another. I can't remember what it is. It might actually be thinking of this. My brain is mush at the moment.
I mean, they're all very kind of like anime kind of characters, aren't they? As well, the kind of just cartoon characters walked into this quite gritty movie.
But anyway, the bit that I do have to contribute, if people have not seen the YouTube clip of it, please do so. There's a scene in the car chase, and I hope Jacob has seen this clip. If not, we're gonna have to send it to him.
Well, I've seen the movie.
Okay. So there's a moment in the car chase where the camera leaves one car, kind of travels along the road towards another car where the action is taking place, and then drops inside that car whilst the action is going, moves through the car, and then just outside the car on the other side, all in one shot. And as you were saying before, with the kind of lowering it down through the thing, they had no kind of rigs or anything like that. And actually, Gareth Evans was saying this was kind of... He said he wasn't sure if this was the first kind of car chase to be shot on the streets of Jakarta, but certainly the biggest one kind of very recently. There may have been done some stuff kind of the 80s or something. But in terms
they were doing
kind of
rickshaw chases before.
In terms of kind of 21st century kind of blockbuster, if you can call it that, this was really the first one. So the infrastructure, they were losing days because essentially just the stuff wasn't set up to do it. A bit like when Korea sort of was getting going again around sort of 30 years ago. You've got to build up for it, and if your filmic infrastructure is not set up to do massive action movies in the middle of your city, the police aren't going to be there, everything's just not going to be set up, and it's a lot of kind of public aware. You need fire crews on standby, ambulances on standby, and road shuts off and all of this kind of stuff. So the thing was, they were then going, he wanted this shot where it kind of goes through, moves through this car and out the other side, and you go, well, how do you actually do that in one shot if you have no drones or cranes or anything like that? Well, it's actually very easy. What you do is you get a guy strapped onto the side of a car initially to kind of zoom up to the main, the camera car, to zoom up to the main where the action is taking place. And then you pass the camera through to a cameraman who's going to do everything, and then pass it out the other side to somebody strapped again to a moving car on the other side. So this third camera guy to hold it from the outside. And you go, but there is no cameraman on the inside of the car. And you go, yes, there is, because he's dressed up as the car seat initially. And this is behind the scenes.
This is the real undercover operation.
It actually is. It's the most amazing thing because you cannot tell. And this camera goes straight past the guy. And then he's literally like the passenger front seat of a car, just kind of hiding like that. And suddenly it comes in and they had to like make a fake like suit leather seat. And it comes in and he just launches into action and takes it and moves it around. It's the most ridiculous way to get around the problem ever invented. But it did the job, and it looks amazing. It's just it's one of my favorite, like my favorite moment of the entire film, purely because how do you even pitch coming up with that?
That's amazing.
Like you have to get.
I was thinking really long plank, so he got me beat.
You have to, again, a really long plank would be the first thing to do, and you just do it from outside the car. Like, how do you get from all these solutions to why don't we dress a cameraman up as a car seat to be in disguise for the first bit of the shot? Like, you have to come up with that, pitch it to the director, pitch it to the producers, pitch it to the people who have to make the car seat suit to get it, fit it, choreograph it, and then do it. Not mentioning the two other cameramen strapped to the outside of cars on like a bit of plank of wood that you've just like drilled into a car frame. It's just, again, we're talking about kind of health and safety regulations. You'd never do that now because you just go, oh, we just do it with a drone. And then you go, yeah, but the one thing with the drone is I mean, the thing with that shot as well, and actually a lot when I was watching it too, the kind of footage quality it doesn't feel like the fluid 24 frames a second. It feels almost like 2021. It's slightly, I'm going to say, less polished. Especially if you look at something like that and then look at something like Havoc, which is only 10 years later. But even earlier films, it's not like Hollywood blockbuster camera quality. There is a slight kind of rawness, a roughness to it. And with this one shot on the action sequences, it gives a raw quality to it, a rough quality to it, that a smoother something, if you were going to do that same thing with a drone, wouldn't give you. And admittedly, that is something I did appreciate with stuff like these action sequences and the bigger stuff. There is, in some of the times, there's this kind of jerky, rougher quality to it, which does kind of what the shaky cam action sequences were trying to do. Which, I mean, I know we take the mickey out of it. We've done it on this episode. But the whole point of that was to try and get a guttural reaction from it, to make you feel like it's real life and everything's shaking around like that. That's the point of it. It wasn't designed to obscure anything. It was designed to kind of make you feel something gutturally. And this does that without actually obscuring what's going on. And it's a beautiful thing, and it straddles that line really, really nicely.
Well, y'all mentioned that sort of the premise for the original The Raid was the prison fight scene, which is like such a small part of this movie that I forgot that it was in it.
Well, I mean, it was that's where it started, and then it came out, and there were stuff on the streets because Jahan reappears as a character in this. And that character was always in the original Barradeen script, and apparently when kind of the first one took over,
which character is this?
I can't remember what character he is, but
the hitman who's killed in the club, he does a hit. So he does a hit for the Indonesian gang, and then they turn on him because they need a fall guy. So.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But that character was always in kind of the original, if you want to say the original version of this film, the original kind of idea. And when Mad Dog as a character was a big hit, he goes, I know Yan has already died, but let me bring him back as this character, and we'll just have him
Yeah.
play a different character and make
And
it.
just his physicality is just so different in this, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like you can completely buy this completely different, separate characters, you know.
It's a lot more kind of almost loping, kind of his body movement's slightly larger. I'm thinking there's a shot where he jumps off a kind of a top floor onto a bottom floor, and he kind of sprawls a bit more, and Mad Dog would not have done that. It would have been much more poised and back up spring.
Sorry, I would describe this guy as homeless man, by the way. He's he looks like Indonesian Santa.
He's homeless hitman who just wants to see his child. He could. He could be like a character from John Wick. I mean, interesting that John Wick, the first one, came out this year as well. You know, there are some similar themes here.
The whole point of Rama going to prison is to meet Uko, I guess, who is Indonesian Matt Dillon.
Yes. Yeah, he is. And then they get him out. Yeah, and like I was going to say the action with this film was obviously, it's like, the raid was just so, so mind blowing, but it's like this is like another level again. And I think it's just so much more kind of ambitious and kind of bigger scaled and more sophisticated in a lot of ways. I mean, what are your guys' kind of favourites of the many fights in this? Do you think, or what kind of stands out to you?
I mean, I really love. I think is it Bijou's club with the, it looks like a nice little restaurant with all the red.
Yes.
And I mean, it's kind of the finale fight scene, but I really love every aspect of that, including the character dynamics of it. Because shortly before it happens, Matt Dillon finds a little listening device in his wallet. That leads to his understanding of how this fight ought to go. And for, I guess if you're watching this, he thinks it's Bijou, so that's who he goes after in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fun little character aspects of Bijou, isn't he? Because he seems so non-threatening most of the time, hobbling around with his cane, but then just a switch goes. When he's got a shotgun in his hand, he's a force to be reckoned with. He'll just like completely.
Apparently the prison fight. So there's several aspects of it. The first one's kind of it was the toilet stall fight, which is interesting as well because it's top down as well, and you got all that stuff. And then the outside prison fight with all the mud. Apparently, Iko and Gareth Evans, again, this one interview that I watched before this, and they were saying it was really tricky because obviously with the fighting style and the choreography, they need it to be quite smooth. With the mud everywhere, they're just slipping and sliding everywhere and not getting it down. Apparently, Gareth Evans also is very annoyed that he lost a pair of shoes in the mud that he really liked, and he never found the pair of shoes. He never got the
incredible.
That one did remind me a lot of the Batman Begins prison fight. When he's off finding himself, it's like that, but like 10 times as long and more violent. But my favorite actually, I think, is between. I really like Yayan's character, his demise. Kind of him just fighting wave after wave of guys in that club. I think that's a really really good fight. Just how he kind of evades and kind of moves around, it's almost like serpentine. How he moves and stuff, very kind of slick But again, a bit like Mad Dog. It's like the thing with his character. He's like, once he knows he's like a coroner's animal. Once he knows he's dying, he's like, well, I'm going to take as many of you guys with me as I can. It's like another level of like being lethal.
Because I did recognize him, I was like, this isn't Mad Dog. Mad Dog did die, right? Different character.
But I also really like just for the audaciousness of it, and it's very anime again. I really like Hammer Girl's kind of introduction on the the train carriage. I think that's cool as well.
It's not a fight scene, but I do like that they are making there's like this porn guy that they're I don't know, like extorting or whatever. And the porn that they're making is pegging. So, very, very progressive.
There's one of the random beats of comedy where she just walks out. It's like, I can't cope with this anymore.
Yeah. What you say? What did he just drag that guy off the street? I can't work in these conditions. Just like
Goes
like a
back and
diva
starts
moment.
going at him again. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
There are just these moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to check something really weird because I remember obviously Jan Ruwan's in so he's in Yakuza Apocalypse and his character in that is called Mad Dog. I thought it was this, where it's literally exactly the same character, but somehow alive again and waiting for evil vampire bosses and demon frog creatures from the. We will do at some point. We will do a Mika episode, and I will do
We could do a whole episode just on the Frogman, couldn't we? Really?
Oh yes, the greatest bad guy of all cinema.
In the car sequences, baseball bat guy also kills someone by just putting his bat through a car window, which like. That takes so much force, I have to imagine.
Very Final Destination.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
and again, I think the guy playing him again. I think he's like a choreographer as well. So,
well, that's the thing about this is that most of them are, including the main actors, are like martial arts experts. I mean, one of them I was just looking. I think it's the guy who from the raid.
So the assassin is a SLAT champion. He's like an Olympic level athlete, basically. So he does competitions. And,
I thought you said slap champion.
The guys who plays the sergeant in the first raid, Joe Taslim, was a three-time medalist at national judo at the Southeast Asian Games and a gold medalist at the Pekin Olharaga on the judo team, national judo team from 1997 to 2009. Like most of them are the kind of people. If you've seen the Netflix series, is it Physical 100? It's like South Korean, like real athlete Squid Games, only you're not killed, but it's a kind of test of strength kind of show. They are people that would go on there and they're just gone, you're going to be in our martial arts movie.
Because I think the only one of like the main fighters who didn't have a martial arts background was Julia Stell, plays Hammer Girl. But I think she did some dancing before, so I think she kind of relearned and kind of basically see the routines almost like as like a dance routine, and she'll learn the movements. I think they did it that way. I think they gave her like a crash course in basic that as well, just so she could keep up.
And I was going to say, if you she's actually in The Night Come For Us as well.
Yes, she is.
Something like that. If you've got a dance background, then doing other things will be fine because you can move. I somehow remember them. If you've seen the movie Splice, Vincenzo Natali, the Dren, the kind of grown-up version of Dren that they've got. They didn't cast a regular kind of monster actress. They cast a dancer because they wanted her movements to be balletic. So you can cross them over, and dancers and that are going to be very useful because you're kind of just learning the moves at one point. Your physicality is automatically going to be there, and your ability to shift on your feet and move around is going to be there naturally from your dancing background.
Yeah, and at the end action, the grand finale action scene, the kitchen fight between Rama and the assassin. I mean, I think there's a reason a lot of martial arts fans go on about that one as like one of the greats, because I mean they developed that for weeks and weeks. I think it took them I think 4 or 5 days to shoot it in its entirety, and it just. And it's one of those. It's like at first you're thinking, oh, this is cool. It's like they're very quick, very. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah, there's very cool moves. But it just builds and builds, and it just goes in all sorts of directions. And obviously it's very well practiced and kind of choreographed. But it seems like the characters are just just on the very survived by skin of the teeth. Having to improvise
and the thing I like about that as well is right at the start you have kind of this feeling each other out, where they kind of go, realistically, we should just find somebody with a gun that's in the rest of this movie and shoot each other, or grab a weapon and stab each other. But no, what we're going to do is we're going to actually treat it like we're in a dojo, and we're going to treat this as a test of pure skill, 1 against 1. But this is the equivalent of the Mad Dog 2-on-1 fight at the end of the first film.
Yeah.
And you have them where they go right next to each other, literally crossing over, and they do a couple of slaps and punch and move back out
Yeah.
and come back in, like
Yeah.
and it's literally inches between each other, and they hold who's going to strike first. Like you don't have that in anything else. Like you get somewhere close, and that's instilled in them the kind of sense of respect and kind of for the craft itself. Because any other action movie, you get halfway close and they just punch you in the face. Like before that, it's like we didn't count to 3, sort of thing. Where it's there, it's almost like this is a competition rather than I should just actually kill you because that's what I'm being employed to do.
Or if it's Vin Diesel, they say, the thing about a street fight is the street always wins.
Unless it's family. Family beats the street.
Kieran, the reason I love this is I'm a sucker for mob movies. And so this has...
I know.
I guess I also lost track of the warring families. But at the very least, Uko and his dad, and then Bijou, I love them as characters. I love that they're going behind each other's backs and making deals. And I like the scene where Uko and Bijou kill the dad of Uko. And just in general, Bijou is an awesome looking character with the gloves and the cane and the sunglasses and the coat. Like it's kind of comic book, anime, graphic novel, but it's awesome.
Yeah, I love their initial their first kind of scheming meeting, and basically he's just completely dominating it. But basically it's like, I'm the smartest guy in this room. You're not gonna kind of outfox me, and basically says, look, if I wanted business, I'd be speaking to your dad. Basically, it's like, I don't want business. I want muscle. I want power.
I also like that I don't know if he's internal affair, whatever. That the cop who put him on the undercover beat.
He's internal affairs.
Yeah, but by the end, he's like, Rama's completely compromised. Like we got to take him out.
I do love in that opening scene though, which set just a couple of hours after the raid, they clearly couldn't get the guy who played the lieutenant back to the first film. Cause you just see this guy kind of white hair from the back, and then when the camera comes around, his face is already destroyed.
That explains why I didn't realize that was the same character. I was like, oh, the white hair. Nope. Okay. Dead guy.
Yeah. They did a Colin Baker regeneration sample.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Yeah, not a ton of rating necessarily in this movie though. Other than the character, I don't know why this is called The Raid 2. I guess
because it's a sequel to The Raid. What are you gonna call it?
I mean, I would call it something cool. Like I would just make it a separate movie and use separate characters and stuff. As interesting as it is that it is the same people, it's also just a completely different movie.
The reason we've got the link, Evans is saying this as well, that when he was kind of making the Raid 1, he was thinking about the original script for Berendal and going, why couldn't we get this going? And part of the thing he was thinking was that the main character has kind of no motivation for staying kind of the undercover stuff. The event of the Raid 1, therefore, essentially means that the police have a hold of him and he's got the no way out. So I think essentially the reason to link the two is so that the Raid 1 just purely gives the motivation for the main character to be in the situation in the Raid 2.
Yeah, and they both strengthen each other, don't they? They're both better films. Have both of them existing. I think they feed into each other really well.
That is fair, but I feel like at that point you can just write anything you want. You're having trouble coming up with that glue that's holding him to the plot. Well, you can make up anything. Like he has a degree in screenwriting. It is not necessary to have the Raid 1
also
to have this awesome crime movie, other than it gave him the money.
There's also the fact that if you've got producers and people piling the money in, the Raid was a big hit, and I'm fairly sure it was a very big hit in Indonesia as well. They may have just gone, we're not going to fund just a random action movie. We'll fund the Raid 2.
Brand recognition.
Unfortunately, part of the funding came from an American studio who got the remake rights. So
I can't wait for the Raid 2 American version.
Yeah. So again, sometimes it is just this could be a separate thing.
I'm honestly surprised that the remake hasn't got further down. It keeps getting floated out every couple of years, but whether that's Evans is doing or whether they just can't find a space for it at the minute. So
Scorsese did The Departed. Just give it, and then again, letting Edwards make an Anglo version of this. Evans, sorry, not Edwards.
Yeah,
different guy.
I get mixed up with Gareth Evans and Edwards as well. Don't worry.
Different GE. Yeah, whatever. Let him do the Anglo version as well. Give him a bigger budget. See how crazy he could get.
No, just like the Anglo version of The Raid essentially is Havoc.
I think they should just set it in the mob world of Cardiff. Actually, make it explicitly set in Wales.
The trouble with that, in the nicest way, is that downtown Cardiff is not big enough, really.
Is there a Welsh mob? Like, Kieran, what's the crime scene like in Cardiff?
I don't know. I kept out of that.
It'll be like any capital cities. There'll be gangs and gangs.
They're selling loose cigarettes and spelling things wrong.
I mean, the issue with Cardiff is that the population of Cardiff is around 300,000. 372,000 apparently in 2022. And so a lot of that is kind of out of the main CBD, which you kind of need for your big action sequences and your car chases. It's kind of just not big enough. Put it this way, if you want context, the population of Wales as a total, we normally say is around 3.5 million. The population of London is around 10 to 12 million. So just in sheer kind of picking a city, Cardiff is not the one you're going to pick, because you have a car chase and you need more streets, and suddenly we're kind of going on to
smart car chase.
Kind of.
I found
you
Wales.
Have some city streets, but it's just not big enough for an extended raid style action sequence.
It's a horse chase in Kieran's neck of the woods, probably. I
do get the odd idiot in an Astra.
From Wales Online, notorious Cardiff gangster dubbed King of the Rowdies, who ruled streets with violence. So,
I mean, it's a city. You will have them, but it's not like they're kind of running a Jakarta and kind of tower block drug.
This image looks like it's from the early 20th century, so
it very possibly was.
He was a pimp, loan shark, and stealer of stolen goods who ruled the mean streets with his hulking physique, fearsome temper, and quick and powerful fists. So, not unlike Jakarta, really.
So he sounds like a Peaky Blinders character.
I was going to say, this is more Peaky Blinders. Is it Tom Knight, Steve Knight?
I don't know.
Stephen Knight, yeah.
Stephen Knight, yeah, they did that. Obviously, get him to write it, and Gareth Evans. Well, I mean, the news you're going to get is obviously Gareth Evans. The other thing he's done is Gangs of London, which I haven't seen, but that sounds like it's a several series long.
Yeah, and they basically brought
in London.
Yeah, so he was like a co-creator of that, but he wasn't the main showrunner. That was Corin Hardy. But from sounds of it, they had him on to make all their fist fights look really cool.
Yeah. Well, when it was first being advertised, it was advertised as from Gareth Evans, director of The Raid and The Raid 2, which is how I know it existed, because it wouldn't be on my radar otherwise. I've yet to see it, but this was like 10 years ago they did the first series, and it was advertised specifically with his name attached.
It appears that Welsh gangster died in 1888, so
there you go.
There may not be organized crime in Wales anymore. Who knows?
I will say that's the same year as Jack the Ripper. Coincidence? I think not. Anyway.
And his name was Mad Jack Matthews. Coincidence? I think
Mad Dog Matthews. Right. Anyway, Matthews. Anyway. Anything else on the Raid 2? Because we've run on this one.
The Raid 2 is freaking sweet.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I love it. It's honestly is like the Raid. No kind of contest. Is one of the best action films of the 21st century, if not ever. Raid 2 is in my top 100 films of all time. I love it. I really love it. It's just, and it's one of those where I've seen it 3 or 4 times, but I do notice something different every time I go back to it. And it's just so good. And 2.5 hours, and it just flies by, and not a moment drags for me. It's so good.
Yeah, we should just have a quick note, because this is on Gareth Evans. Apostle is a film that exists.
It's a messy folk horror. Really. I don't think
martial arts.
There's a little bit.
There's no martial arts, but there's a couple of fight scenes where you see kind of the Evans style come in. It's essentially a remake of The Wicker Man, but like the kind of god that they're kind of praying to and sacrificing to actually exists. That's pretty much the only difference. Other than that, it's a Wicker Man remake in Wales.
Basically, just watch it first. Sinister, Michael Sheen, and Mad, Dan Stevens.
Yeah, that's about it. And then Havoc. Go watch it. It's out on Netflix.
And it's still awesome fight scenes, particularly two extended ones, one in a club and one in a cabin in the woods. They're both great.
That's a movie.
But the rest of it is pretty generic, and Tom Hardy could do this kind of stuff in his sleep, really, basically.
Yeah, and I don't know when it's meant to be set. It's weird because all the kind of cinematography feels very cyberpunk, but all the like it's meant to be set like 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
I don't know, but they don't name the city either, obviously, because it's Cardiff standing in for generic American city, and it could be set anywhere at any time, really.
I do need to go back and rewatch it and see if I can identify locations.
Well, do they have like cell phones?
They do.
They have cell phones, but they're like Nokia kind of bricks variations of, and the cars are sort of.
Yeah, but I'm sure most of the city street scenes would be like Cardiff. Stuff that's not actually in a studio. The stuff out of the streets would be Cardiff streets with like a CG extension up, I think, to give the buildings a bit of height.
Yes.
Because you don't really get tall buildings in Cardiff, do you?
You get a few downtown, and they are building more. But the trouble is, just the city centre is not big enough yet to justify the rows and rows and rows of tall buildings. But anyway, so he has some more stuff, but they exist, and the Raid films are his.
I would say just for the two Raid films, and to only a slightly lesser extent, Marantel, I think he's got his name on the map as the preeminent action filmmaker probably this century for good reason.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
action filmmakers will be looking back to the Raid whenever they do their movies now, because it's just peak.
Well, and in any sort of claustrophobic action sequence or film, I mean, you could just kind of go to that. Like, I couldn't find if the Russo brothers specifically cited it for Winter Soldier, but like,
the apartment fight, where they're trying to arrest Bucky, that's very much like that, isn't it?
Yep. All
Beautiful.
right. Well, that's it on Gareth Evans. Go back to Indonesia, buddy. That's
it's where your good stuff is.
Again, I wonder if it's because over there, obviously, there's a financing thing, and kind of the technologically it forces you to get more creative. In Hollywood, there is a tendency that you can solve everything very easily, so everything just gets smoothed out to a certain extent. So everything just becomes a little bit too clean.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't lose his kind of distinct voice, though, and his kind of, I hope he can kind of let his personality shine through if he's doing more Hollywood stuff. Interestingly, next year we've got Aiko's directorial debut, so it'll be interesting to see what he's like as an action director.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, we'll keep an eye out for that. I guess we've done a significant portion of his major filmography. But I mean, we have plenty of martial arts fodder to go back to. But until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack, where this week I posted a review of Havoc. So check that out.
Right in time. And hopefully you don't find me anywhere. Well, maybe. But I'm K-Judgmental at various places.
Unless Gareth Evans.
You can find him poking around Cardiff looking for...
Already found him years and years ago. I told him he should do a version of the Raid in one of our university buildings. But so I am K-Judgmental in the various socials. I put reviews up on the Substack for The Accountant 2 and Until Dawn. And I will plug the fact that if you're in the UK, I am presenting papers at 2 different conferences this month. I've got one at a conference in Derby I will be presenting on Saturday the 17th. Yes, on Dracula and the Pallbearers Club. And then 4 weeks today, as they told me I can officially announce it today, I am presenting a paper at Northumbria University for the Horror Studies Now conference on slasher movies. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Ooh,
If you're an
amazing.
American, that's Derby, by the way.
It really isn't. Incorrect.
You can find me at Jacob Film Guy, and I mean, I edited Sam's Havoc review. I mean, it was pretty flawless, so really,
Jacob will eventually get involved with the writing at some point.
Yeah.
That isn't Snow White.
Hey, you know what?
Hey, he's done a Snow White review.
Snow White has the most views. Now it is a Disney movie. But yeah, you can find things that I've written there. Sometimes a thing, and
Yep.
yeah. I played Until Dawn. I haven't seen the movie. Yeah, but
You can survive without seeing the movie, don't worry.
Yep, that is what I gathered. But yeah, thank you for listening, and goodbye.
It is.
Goodbye.